Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of Stepping Into Frame, our podcast all about women in screenwriting. And today we are talking about the Sofia Coppola 2013 film, The Bling Ring, which was all about the burglaries committed by LA teenagers in 2008 and 2009. And today I'm joined by Lorna. Hello.
Hello.
Lorna. So tell us about this film. Is it the first time you've watched it?
No, I watched it quite soon after it came out. So it was a good while ago now. 10 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I remembered enjoying it, but also I had no recollection of it being a Sofia Coppola film at all.
Right.
And so it took me a bit of time to like, so when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, is it? And then, but there are very Sofia Coppola things about it, aren't there? In terms of the way it's filmed, it's very, very cinematic, and the pace. The pacing is slightly different because there's a lot of things happening. Whereas normally in a film, it's kind of slow character progression, and it's in those moments and in those quiet moments that the events unfold, isn't it? And that you see the kind of progression of the characters more so than in this, which is bam, 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 plenty of things going on, lots of fun times going through Paris Hilton's wardrobes.
Yeah, that was nuts, wasn't it? I was like, that was really her house as well.
Apparently. Oh, really? Well, I did wonder, I was like, because obviously I did think she might be behind this film. And because you imagine that there was split feelings about whether or not this film should get made.
Yes, it's true, because she had a cameo in it too. So I figured that, and I read that she was up for it. So I think it's extraordinary that someone's just opened their doors and let a bunch of people into film. But mind you, the burglars had already been in, so I guess you've got nothing to lose, have you? Anyway, go on, tell us about your thoughts.
So I mean, it's a fascinating concept, and what they managed to get away with for so long, you just can't imagine that it was so easy for them to break into these homes. And you do imagine that it would be these sophisticated like career burglars breaking in and doing these like aggravated break-ins and everything. But no, they were just kids who just went, oh, let's just Google to see when they're away, and oh look, they haven't locked their door. And you can't, I mean, they do have a lot of doors in these big houses, so I suppose when you've got a big house like that, I mean, going around, it's not like a front door and a back door, is it? There's quite a few to check. So.
And they're all the same, aren't they? All those houses all have massive glass doors that are huge. It's almost like the houses were interchangeable. So I guess if you know how to break into one, you know how to break into others, right? Yeah. Maybe. Anyway, sorry. Go on.
Yeah. So because it's based on true events, like I was saying to you earlier, it's really difficult when you're watching it to break down what's script and what's reality, and just kind of, you just get sucked into the actual true life events of it all. And my brain always goes to, I wonder whether it really happened like that. How much information do they have? And do they know that they said that, or have they heard them quoting in interviews? Because they did so many interviews. These guys are opportunistic in every respect. They took advantage of the open doors, and then once they got in the public eye, they took advantage of that as well.
True. It's very true. And were there sort of anything that you didn't like about the film, or didn't work for you particularly from a script writing point of view? I know it's hard to work that out. But,
it really is hard to break that down, and it'd be fascinating to really kind of go into it. And I'm sorry that I'm not able to do that, because to really kind of have done the research and just look at every single interview. And I've read the original article that was done on. In terms of what I didn't like, I think it's a really fascinating story, and I don't think there is anything I didn't like.
Okay.
Okay,
that's interesting. Did you find the characters were compelling and stuff?
Yeah, well, I mean, they were ripped to pieces, really, weren't they? I mean, some of them were really vapid. and soulless, and just coming out with the kind of spiel script of like, oh yes, I'm all about healing, and I'm all about I believe in karma. And it's interesting that quote is at the beginning of the film as well, because she did actually say that about how she believes in karma, and I'm sure Sofia Coppola chose that quote as a so do I.
Very much. It was very deliberately placed, wasn't it? Right at the beginning. I always find with Sofia Coppola's films, you always pay close attention to those opening shots because they give you so much information about what's gonna happen. So it's interesting. But I thought it was really hilarious with the fact that it was The Secret was the mum's book that she was using as the kind of guiding principles of the family. We go back to, which was really really kind of funny. But it was a really interesting and sort of slightly odd, I guess, philosophy to drive the family behavior by. But it was kind of very much of the time, I think.
Yeah. Well, true. And Hollywood, isn't it? I'm sure there were lots of people going around talking like that, wouldn't there? It's certainly the impression we get given of Hollywood through Hollywood itself and television and film and things, that's the way that things are in Hollywood, which is all a little bit alien to us lot.
Yes. It was very alien, wasn't it? It was very much another world. Did you find that?
Yeah, and I suppose that's the way that the way that they justified it to themselves as well, isn't it? Is that they these people weren't real, that these houses they were breaking into. It was just so they lived on this other plane so completely with all this stuff. It would just, they're not going to miss it. And Paris Hilton certainly didn't miss it for several break-ins.
Yeah, right. Do you know, it's funny you say that it's like they were like very removed from the characters were very removed from the celebrities, if you like. Because I actually wondered, I had sort of a slightly different question, and I wondered whether, in fact, it was like they were these burglaries were like an apprenticeship to that life. I kind of wondered if they felt like they were so entitled that they sort of just started doing this and becoming part of this world, because I wondered if they felt, because that's where they lived and it was their community and they were the people that surrounded them all the time, whether, well, this is just our introduction to society, right?
Yeah.
Maybe this is like you kind of,
Yeah, it's a shortcut, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's like they felt that because they did all come from well-off backgrounds, didn't they? None of them were poor. And so they just like, well, they probably did feel to a certain extent like, this is my destiny, this is who I am, this is where I belong, this is what I should have because I am me and valuable, and so therefore they're withholding these things from me by keeping them in their own houses.
And certainly something that would be reiterated through those teachings of books like The Secret and whatever. So it's not like they had an alternative philosophy from home, or necessarily you didn't get a sense of a different kind of lifestyle in their home. So which was interesting. So just to sort of summarize our sort of short on this, how does it stack against the other Sofia Coppola films you've seen?
It's very different. It's got a similar kind of tone to it with all the filming, but it is very different. And like I said, I didn't really think of it as being one of her films because it's the pace of it is very different, and you don't get the character progression, which granted it's very slow character progression in her other films, and you do see it happening, the kind of realization, whereas these guys don't really have any kind of realization. They just kind of wiggle their way through it, and then just what's his name? She's chosen different character names for the actual people who did the crimes to their actual real life names. So so I get confused now because I've read articles as well as watched the film, but I think it's called Nick in real life. So he talks very much about how he's going to change and that he's sorry for what he's done, but it does still feel like a script because he doesn't actually look sorry when he's being interviewed.
No,
it's just it's just saying it. In fact, he's smiling and looking quite smarmy.
it's another public relations opportunity,
Yeah,
perhaps.
yeah, it is.
Maybe.
It certainly feels that way.
So can you? Where would you put it? Where would you rank it? Is it one of the better ones? Is it middle? Is it towards bottom? Where would you put it?
I don't think it can even be ranked with her films. I think it's a very different beast. I think it's just almost so different from her that it isn't her.
It defies categorization, maybe.
Yes, as one of her films, I would say.
Yeah. I've got to agree with you on all of those points. I think it's a real departure from, in many ways, from many of the Sofia Coppola films that we know and love. I think it's because it's a real life. Well, no, I was going to say it's a real life story, but so was Marie Antoinette. And it feels very different. I think you're right, though, about tonally, it's very much a Coppola film. Cinematically, it's very much a Coppola film. But it's a really different one. I've got to say, I don't love this film at all. I wouldn't say anything terrible about it, but I really struggle with this film on a bunch of levels.
It doesn't have any real heart, does it? It's just it's almost like a documentary, really, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a brilliant point on which to end it. Should it be a documentary? Is it a documentary? Is it a film? What is it? Let's dive into it a little bit later on the audio podcast. So if you're keen to listen more to find out what Lorna and I think and whether we did get to the bottom of the Bling ring, check us out on our longer audio podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, Lorna. Talk to you soon.
My pleasure. Bye.
See you. Bye.
Thanks so much for watching our video, everybody. We really hope you enjoyed it. You can like us and subscribe to us over here on YouTube. And if you want to hear more of this conversation, head over to Spotify, Apple, places like that for a much longer version. But for now, YouTube thinks you'll like these ones. They look pretty good. I reckon you should check it out, especially that top one. Ooh, nice.